Hello, my name is Alex, your digital presenter for today's event. Before we dive into the exciting and informative content we've prepared for you, here's a quick disclaimer. I'm actually an artificial intelligence, AI, designed and programmed to assist with sharing valuable knowledge and resources. I am here to provide evidence-based, up-to-date information and guidance, and will be sharing real stories from my colleagues at FND. Here at FND, we value honesty and transparency in all our interactions. We at the Family Network on Disabilities believe that the incredible advancements in technology, such as AI, can significantly enhance our ability to provide families with the resources, support, and information they need. All the information shared in this training comes from the dedicated team of experts at FND who have years of experience, rich understanding, and most importantly, a deep passion for supporting families just like yours. Family Network on Disabilities began in 1985 by a group of parents of children with disabilities who came together looking for mutual support. FND is a grassroots organization for persons with disabilities and their families that is family-centered and family-driven. What makes FND unique is that the majority of our board members, our management staff and program staff, are either individuals with experience with a disability or have family members with a disability, which gives us the perspective of empathy and compassion for the work that we do. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about Family Network on Disabilities. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization helping families across the state. We're funded in part by the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Health through the Health Resources Services Administration. We use all that funding to provide information, resources, and support, and training to families, educators, professionals, and providers throughout the state. We do not charge for our services. At this time, we would like to make a disclaimer that we at FND are not attorneys, doctors, or mental health professionals. We do not offer legal or medical advice in our workshops. We are happy to support you with information, resources, and support. We use research-based information in our training and materials. Today we're going to be talking about differentiated instruction. So let's get started. Here are some of the learning objectives that we'll discuss today. We will become familiar with vocabulary related to differentiated instruction. Then we'll also understand basic principles of differentiating content, process, and product. We'll be able to implement at least one instructional strategy to support our students. I'll start with the history of differentiated instruction. It is not a new idea. It dates back to our one-room schoolhouses when teachers had no choice but to differentiate. Their students had a variety of differences, whether it was age, motivation, or proficiency. Teachers had to respond to their individual needs. Even though the term may be new, the philosophy behind of it is not. Differentiation can be defined as a way of teaching in which teachers proactively modify their curriculum, the methods that they use to teach, their resources, the activities that they use, and then again, the student's product, what they are producing to show an understanding of the material. This is to adjust the individualized needs of each student and maximize their learning opportunity. Let's look at diversity of learners. When we talk about who needs differentiated instruction, we're looking at being proactive because, again, each student looks different. Students are not alike, they are very different. What may cause these differences in learning? It could be their learning styles, it could be their interests, it could be their sociocultural challenges, their background, their culture, their personal life experiences, their ability, intelligence, again, the English as a second language learners, and then their motivation. In general, some of us are less motivated than others, especially when it's a subject that may be challenging for us or we're not really interested in. Those are the different things that teachers are looking at when they're deciding how they're going to differentiate instruction. Some classroom structures do not address this diversity, and that's the biggest mistake that a teacher can make. Where do we start? This does not mean that teachers need to tailor the instruction for each student. They need to differentiate the instruction. They can do it by groups, which makes this challenge for a teacher, because now they have to make sure that they're grouping appropriately. Then they're looking at the content areas. Some students may struggle with math, but then now you have students in math that are struggling with fractions, and then some excel in addition, and then some may struggle in the beginning of the school year, while others may struggle in the end of the school year. These are the different things that they're taking into consideration when they're differentiating instruction. Because students' needs change frequently, teachers must become familiar with the general principles and strategies to be able to differentiate instruction. What can they use to see what's the changes that are happening? They use ongoing assessments and then flexible grouping. Rather than assessing a student all at the end of a unit, teachers can use assessments before, during, and after teaching a unit to get as much information that they need and to be able to provide effective instruction. By frequently assessing the knowledge and skills again, they can use this information to develop and refine their instruction to meet the needs of these students that are shifting. Flexible and varied grouping can be addressed through different variety of grouping method. We can do whole group, small group, peer-to-peer, in addition to having students work independently. How do teachers differentiate? They start by knowing their students. We talked a little bit about what would make students different. Another key component to that is their readiness, and that refers to their knowledge and skill level regarding a specific content, a specific subject. A student's level varies across subjects and different subject areas. A student, again, might be an expert in one area, but they then struggle or they have challenges in different areas. Teachers can determine the level at which your student is working in a specific subject. Then their readiness may be influenced as well by their background knowledge, their life experience, or what they knew before they came to the class. Another area that a teacher will learn about student is their interest. When a teacher is able to learn their interests, the teacher can discover and determine what topics that student may enjoy, which activities they engage in outside of class. Then they can be able to ask their students to discuss their interests, complete an interest inventory, write a journal entry about themselves, participate in classroom icebreaker activities. Another area that a teacher would want to know is that student's learning profile. This refers to the method of learners learning new information or skills, and the environmental factors that influence a student's learning. A student's profile can also be influenced by their gender and their culture. Let's give you an example. Students from cultural background that value cooperation may value that over competition, and they may perform better in small group activities versus working independently. Teachers can assess the student's preferred method of learning by, again, as we mentioned earlier, the inventory questionnaire, and then, of course, observing their students. As teachers begin to differentiate instruction, there are three main instructional elements that they can adjust to meet the needs of their learners. The content, which is the knowledge and the skills the student needs to master. The process in which they use to master that information. Then their product, and that's the method that they use to demonstrate their understanding. Learning environment is sometimes included as one of the elements associated with differentiated instruction, and this refers to the organization and then the atmosphere of the classroom. What does the classroom look like? When teachers differentiate content, the same skills or concept is taught to each student. We're not changing the content here. The curriculum used to teach the concept of skills might be different depending on their readiness. Let's share an example. For this one, we can use reading materials at different levels. Putting materials on tape, so recorded materials. Using spelling or vocabulary lists as readiness at their students' readiness levels. Those are those tiered ways that we can differentiate instruction. Differentiating the process is a bit different. They teach the same concept. However, the manner in which each student makes sense of the topic can vary. Teachers should vary the activities students use to master the skills. They can decide how best to do this by taking into account the students' readiness levels, their interests, and their learning profiles. An example of differentiating the process is by providing interest centers that encourage students to explore subsets of the class topics of a particular interest, and maybe developing personal agendas, choice boards, interest centers, like I mentioned before, graphic organizers. Those are different ways to differentiate the process. Tiered assignments can be differentiated based on product. Now teachers can use this method of grouping, which groups by bodily, kinesthetic, and their task to create an act or a skit. The product is their learning outcome, and it should represent students' extensive understanding of an application. It causes students to think about and apply, even expand on, their understanding and skills. So what are some examples of differentiating product at an elementary level? This is giving students options on how to express their required learning, using rubrics that match and extend students' various skill, and then allowing students to work alone or in a small group on their products. Without an effective learning environment with rules, procedures, and respect for others, it doesn't matter how much you differentiate instruction, it may not resolve in the expected positive outcomes. We have to make sure that we are addressing our learning environment. Classroom setup for ways the physical space contributes to the quality of the lesson is really important. We can plan for flexible room arrangements to support an effective learning environment. Let's look at getting your student into the zone. What zone is your child in? This is really important because then this is where a teacher would know how much differentiation needs to happen and where it needs to happen. Is it too easy? That student gets it right away, I'm sure I'll make an A. As for just right, the student may be thinking, I know some things. I have to think. I have to work. I feel challenged, and then it's too hard. A student may be thinking, I don't know where to begin. I'm missing key skills. I feel frustrated. You can look at this and say, well, I have two children, and I can see where both of them would land on this, depending on the subject. All right, tiered process. The whole process of providing supports, it's tiered. It's already tiered. They have already broken it down on how they provide supports. At the school level, the 1000 TSS process, which stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports, it's a framework used to maximize the success of all students. It is not a separate program from the school or class or intervention, but it's a way to organize instruction and intervention to help all students. Let's go ahead and go over the tiers. And this is really important for us as parents to understand, so that we can see what supports our students are receiving and how we can support the schools in ensuring that they are making gains. For Tier 1, that's all students. Regardless if your child has a disability or not, they are all Tier 1 students. That's general education students. Again, they're Tier 1. All students receive high-quality instructions in academics. Tier 2. That's when we start to give them a little bit more support. Students need more support, receive small group interventions and supports. The difference is they have increased time, maybe small groups of students, or a narrowed focus of instruction. Teachers adapt their instruction to these differences. And then for Tier 3, they receive specially designed intervention. This is in addition to our Tier 1 and our Tier 2 students receiving Tier 3 intervention. Our Tier 3 students, they are receiving both. They are getting the broad spectrum of high-quality education, just like everyone else. Now they are also getting small group instruction. Now they're receiving Tier 3 intervention. Again, that's the most intensive supports based on their individual needs. The difference is individual, team-based problem solving. Teachers are meeting together with their interventionists, maybe a reading coach, to figure out what else does the student need to be able to make progress. They are adapted to the needs as appropriate to the needs of the student. Let's talk about assistive technology. The Tier 3 target the students with the most complex needs, and then these students may need specialized evaluations to determine individual needs. They may also require additional follow-up and technical interventions to support recommended technology. At Tier 3, the teacher and other specialists may work collaboratively with an assistive technology specialist to complete an evaluation of needs, and then identify appropriate technology and services to support that student. They may develop an implementation plan to support those recommendations, and using the roles and responsibility guidelines to be able to implement this plan and these technologies for your student. Again, the team will decide what technology will be provided, and then how the technology will be implemented. In some cases, sometimes, it may take long trials to be able to address the needs of the student, depending on the severity of the needs that they have. Here you can see our FND, family. These are the programs housed under the Family Network on Disabilities. Each program provides a unique service to a specific population. There are 3 PTI programs funded by the U.S. Department of Education through the Office of Special Education Programs. POPN serves North Florida, PSN serves Southwest Florida, and PEN serves Southeast Florida. The Family Star program, funded by the U.S. Department of Health under the Health Resources Services Administration, and supports families of youth with special health care needs. FND also has a special needs trust, where we provide families with information regarding creating and supporting a special needs trust. We also do programming specific to fathers raising children with disabilities. Here you can see links for multiple downloadable resources available in various languages. You can also see some of our social media platforms. We have various pages on Facebook addressing the needs of different populations and our programs. I invite you to check out our website at www.fndusa.org for the hundreds of pages of resources and invaluable information that you can access and download at no charge. You can reach us to help you and your family by giving us a call at 800-825-5736 and letting us know your needs. You'll be assigned to a staff person who can support you. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Visit our website for valuable resources and more information. We want to thank you for spending this time with us during this presentation. We look forward to hearing from you.